Hey everyone, it's Evan Kirstel and Eugenia Jordan, and we are super excited to have this chat in advance of Mobile World Congress on the future of the telecom network and its direction, open standards, innovation, interoperability. What else, Eugenia? We're going to cover a lot of bases today.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about TIP Pavilion at MWC, and I have some our board members are here, TIP board members, Juan Carlos and Caroline Chen. I'm so grateful that you're making the time. And look, Caroline, I wasn't wearing red because I knew you were going to wear your signature.
Well, I'm wearing red. I'm in Florida at the moment. I'm completely sunburned. I've turned into Florida man. So hopefully I can get through this discussion without melting down. But Eugenia, let's talk about some of the topics and themes of the Telecom Infrastructure Project, or TIP as it's known, as we go into MWC. Maybe give us some background. A lot of viewers might not be familiar with TIP and the organization, its mission, its structure, its value to the community.
Sounds great. I'm going to give my version, and then we're going to ask Juan Carlos and Caroline Chen because they've been with TIP much longer than me. So I only joined in September. So TIP's mission is to make sure that open and disaggregated innovations, they get tested, validated based on operator requirements, and then they get deployed. Caroline, what is TIP's mission?
I didn't remember. So apparently I've been one of the longest serving board on the director on the board. When we first started, the mission was actually quite simple. It's to make telecom, here the telecom infra project, telecom infrastructure functions, acting, innovated, just like the way that cloud is. Really open, disaggregated, software-led, driving a lot of the open ecosystem that we see that today in the cloud. That was the missions when we started, and it has manifested into many different projects. Open RAN is one very close and dear to my heart, open Wi-Fi, and many others. I think later on we'll talk about, in fact, when other board member joins us. But at the heart of it is that really significantly improve the economics of our telco infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And I would like to add that, it's not just the mission, no? It's also how we get it, no? So the way TIP is working, that is important, no? It's community-based, contribution-driven, so it's an active ecosystem of partners that jointly work on this development, no, of open and disaggregated solutions. And this is what is giving a high value, no, to what Telecom Infra Project is doing.
Absolutely. And as representative of Telefonica, now I'm asking you to put your Telefonica hat on. You worked as a part of the community with TIP on OPT and transport projects.
Yes. So from the very beginning, we were very, very active in TIP. We saw the value of this community and the work we do there, and not only that. So we have got to produce, technologies and solutions that we have now in our production networks. Many of them in the area of transport. Okay, the disaggregated open routers, disaggregated open systems, disaggregated cell-side routers. So all these are innovations that TIP has brought, and that we have, progressively taken from requirements to lab testing to field trials, and then finally to production networks, no? And many other more things. No? Now we are thinking on the transport networks of the future, developing SDN solutions for transport in the MUST project. We are also preparing for the metaverse, with the metaverse ready networks for open transport, and all this will bring us not only to solutions of today, no, but also will prepare us for the services of the future with these open and disaggregated solutions.
Open and disaggregated transport, open and disaggregated open RAN. So it sounds like Telefonica been very, very busy innovating in open and disaggregated. And Caroline, you said that Open RAN is your passion. Why is that?
I think one thing we've seen in the cloud side is that when you open up, when you're running a disaggregated, when you separate the hardware and software, one of the principles of NFV, right, network function virtualization, you do attract new talents, you attract new applications. One of the things that when we envisioned Open RAN is not just for the sake of open. It really drives innovation, and also during the pandemic, we saw this supply chain issues. When you started getting multiple sourcings coming in, you do, in a way, secure your supply chain too. So there are many benefits of it. And one of the later things that we've seen is that to fulfill the promise of 5G, one of the Open RAN is being seen is going to be 5G. It's going to show in the TIP booth, it's going to show Intel booth and Telefonica booth, and many operators and partners will showcase that. We see the innovations such as RIC really start driving wireless securely to the edge and driving something what we call private networks. So 5G doesn't just serve the smartphone, 5G serves industrial, serves retail. In fact, we have two examples like that in Intel booth. And when we start seeing what TIP community start contributing, is beyond just telco. It's actually start taking these into the really edge into the enterprise side. I think that is the promise of 5G. Is about things. It's about IoT. It's beyond just smartphone. Really open up the market, so to speak, for all our telecom infrastructure vendors and partners, as well as operators like Telefonica.
Thank you for giving us a little preview of what Intel is doing at MWC. So we're going to give a little preview here what TIP is doing at MWC as well, and we're very grateful for the support. So we have a pavilion in Hall 5. It's aisle A, so 5A40. And we're very excited that we brought a community of our participants. Caroline, Open RAN is going to be there, Rick and Roma. And there will be also a stage where Juan Carlos, you will be speaking on the first day. And I know you told me you're still working on the presentation, but maybe you can give us a little preview what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we will be talking together with Deutsche Telekom and Tanya and 14Y Labs that is doing a great job in this testing and validation of open solutions. We are part of the initiative as well, collaborating with them, and then we will speak about a bit about what we are doing there in Open RAN, in Open Transport, and in the rest of activities around TIP. A bit what we want to show is how we operators are collaborating and working together in defining the solutions and making them a reality. At the end, that is what we want. For the sake of what Caroline already pointed, supply diversity and also innovation. That is something we need in our networks. We don't want to replicate the current networks we have today with another kind of solution, but we want to bring something really innovative and better. And that's why we are launching things like the RAN intelligence and automation, or the RAN orchestration and management solutions in TIP, because we want another kind of RAN, a RAN that is more intelligent and that is more easily integrating breakthrough innovations from the market.
That sounds great. So our viewers, please make sure to visit TIP Pavilion on Monday to hear Juan Carlos and DT and I14Y Lab speak in TIP's Pavilion. So my next question is around the community. How is Telefonica and Intel helping build the community through TIP? because if we look at how TIP operates, we get the requirements from operators like Telefonica, Vodafone, then companies like Intel and others. We work jointly in our project groups on the roadmaps, and then we test and validate solutions so they can go back into the blueprints, so that again it comes back the full circle where mobile operators can start deploying them. So why is community important, Caroline?
That's how really TIP operates, like Juan Carlos mentioned, right? We really thrive on the contribution. So, for example, Intel contribute through resources, through technology, because we're one of the first one that really jump into Open RAN, for example. We have labs, we have people that are working on metaverse project group, which is something that I'm really excited to see. We also galvanize our ecosystem to participate. Like one thing we haven't mentioned is TIP has a TIP Academy, which I'm really excited about. Academy this is about sharing the knowledge. We've done this before. This is what we learned, and Intel always had this academy concept. We call them network builders. So we had a curriculum. We contribute that back to TIP, back to the TIP Academy. So then we can reach many, many more operators. Like today, we work with obviously the tier ones, the Vodafone, Telefonica, Deutsche Telekom, and MTN, BT. But there's so many more tier twos, tier threes in Indonesia, in Africa. How do we reach them? How do we educate their engineers what Open Wi-Fi, Open RAN, OPT is, a metaverse? This is through the Academy. Who else does this other than this community-driven initiative like TIP? That's something I'm really super proud. We don't see that today. Just like, like Juan Carlos, you're going to talk with Deutsche Telekom. How do you see two operators start sharing their learnings and mistakes and what they've done right, done wrong? We even did drawn RFI before. So that's the type of thing that TIP brings uniquely to the industry. Others initiatives have not done so.
It is very, very important, Caroline, what you say of really contributing and sharing, efforts and results in the community. And the reason for this is that none of us is big enough, to cope with the huge effort that represents the design, development, integration, validation of disaggregated solutions. So there are so many components, and there is so much activity to do in all areas, from setting the requirements to defining the use cases, to go to the lab and then to make the trials. All this is something that we cannot replicate in every single partner in TIP. Okay, so we need to, at the end, mutualize somehow the work and share the results and move together, because we need to do by ourselves something that in the past was done by the vertical providers, and this is requiring us to do this coordination effort and this collaboration, and we cannot avoid it. This is a necessity.
It is indeed necessity. So we would welcome smaller, like Caroline was saying, tier 2 and tier 3's operators in TIP. So industry giants like Telefonica can share their findings, mistakes, successes, victories, and so on. So if you're at MWC and you want to learn about TIP community, how we can help you, please visit us. And another thing, Caroline, you reminded me, and that's why I was looking on my phone. On Monday at MWC, we're going to start a special promotion for TIP Academy. There will be a discounted code that if people go on tip.academy, they will be able to get 50% off all the courses. And it's all capital MWC 50. So wait till Monday. go on TIP Academy and buy those amazing courses, as Caroline was talking about, to help your engineers learn about cloud native, Open RAN, and so on. So I know that other two members will be joining us shortly. So I told you when we were preparing that I was going to ask you, and Caroline is laughing. I was going to ask you a question about the most memorable story from MWC. And I brought up this story when a young engineer was driving his boss to MWC, and the hotel was an hour away. And on the day where he was supposed to have a very important meeting, the person slept in. So
was that you, Eugenia? Who was guilty of that? Is that Carol?
No. Yeah, was that you? Was that you, that young engineer?
No, was not me. And like I drive like a mad woman, but not in Spain. So Caroline, do you have a sweet or funny or inspirational story from
Not inspirational, it's more embarrassing. Do you guys remember before the current FIRA, there was in the Plaza España, that FIRA? Remember there were a lot of steps?
Yeah.
Too many.
Pavilion, it's based a lot of steps. That was like, when I was actually still with another company at the time, I was wearing heels. I was just so silly. I was wearing heels. And I was literally walking up and down. This third day, I was standing about to give a presentation. The heel broke off on my right shoe. All of a sudden, you heard this bing. I'm like,
oh no.
My right side shoulder, then he left. It was terrible. So at that time, there's nothing I can do. I simply took off both shoes. So I did the whole presentation barefoot.
Oh, no.
What can you do at that time? You're just like, oh no.
See, that's true grit. That's true resilience. My favorite story was from a few years ago. Do you remember when it snowed in Barcelona during the MWC?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I came over to Barcelona thinking, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be warm and sunny. I don't need a coat. I don't need a jacket or hat. I booked into my Airbnb. There's no blanket. There's no heater. It's just, summer. And I was like freezing all night in my huddling with nothing except my jacket to keep me warm. So yeah, I learned that it can snow in Barcelona. What about you, Juan Carlos? You're a local, so you maybe don't have these embarrassing.
Well, I mean, this time it can rain. So every year we have a different kind of surprise, no? And probably it will be rain. Yeah, in my case, I don't have a story. I repeat the same story every year. That is, I don't use the gym while in Mobile World Congress because I walk a lot. So I'm always walking in the wrong direction. I don't know how I make it. But from one meeting room to another, I realized, after 10 minutes that I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm making 20 to 30,000 steps per day. So
wow, that is aspirational.
Yes,
that is aspirational. So
but this is just because I'm going in the wrong direction always.
One thought I'd like, one of the reasons I'm so excited about sort of hosting this discussion is it has to do with the digital divide, and that half the world's population doesn't have access to the internet. It's a shocking statistic. The digital divide, I think, isn't necessarily closing. The gap between haves and have-nots is even increasing in some countries, in some parts of the world. And this is one of the initiatives as an open standards body that really is focused on getting mobile and fixed access into, imagine a world, into every village, into libraries, into schools around the world. And that must drive a lot of your excitement about this project, right? I mean, what's the big picture, Eugenia, in terms of where this initiative will get us in 5 years from now, in terms of that accessibility gap?
So I'll let Juan Carlos go first because I know it's his passion.
Okay, well, I'm glad I am.
we have Evan, a great success story with TIP on that topic. Many years ago, I think 5 or 6 years ago, we started a project then for trying to cover rural areas in Latin America.
Mhm.
Okay. And it started with, again, definition of requirements, trying to find a solution that was open and efficient enough for such a complex environment, because we are talking about in locations where it's difficult to get there with a backhaul to connect a base station and all the stuff. And we did a great work with Meta to try to design the network, the solution, and the architecture for that. And now this is a production network. We have a telecom operator there operating in rural for all the operators in the market. Okay, so it's really a success story. We have got to connect rural areas, so hundreds of towns that were in the past not reachable. And really the story is great, and also being repeated in some other areas in Latin America, and it's becoming a reference in the region. Okay, so you are right. So we have now a big challenge, and it's a big challenge with the internet of today, and will be a huge challenge with the internet of the future. Okay, and that probably will be more difficult even to deliver to these unconnected areas. Okay, so I think we have plenty of work to do there, and it is on TIP's spirit, to contribute to the challenge.
I don't know, Ichina, you were with us then at the beginning of the pandemic. I remember there was a story out of Indonesia, because when the kids were sent home, there was a girl would go from walk a couple of miles just to find a spot where she could get on internet and do her schoolwork. Is that kind of story that TIP was able to help, partnering with a local operator to provide connectivity so our children could actually get on the internet. We did that here in the US. You were thinking that this only happened in Latin America, rural areas, like Juan Carlos talked about, or in islands in Indonesia. Here in the United States, in Sacramento, the capital of California, and there was an issue that there was a housing project. Kids just weren't able to get on the internet to do this, not enough to do their schoolwork. So we came in and partnered with partners to provide that kind of connectivity. There's so many examples, Evan, that you don't even think about, that when the pandemic really taught us a lesson. Connectivity is not luxury. Connectivity is necessity.
Yeah.
And it's connectivity with multiple modes and multiple cost challenges. It's, some would say satellite is the solution to closing the digital divide. Well, maybe not. If you talk about schools, if you talk about in buildings and libraries and hospitals, satellite has its place, but it's this diverse, literally network of modalities and connections, fixed, mobile, satellite, indoor, outdoor, underground, that we need to focus on to really address half the world's population not being on the internet. And that's why I'm really excited to support, TIP and Eugenia's effort here to raise the profile. What's next, Eugenia? I think we have another couple of guests coming up. And when are folks traveling out to Barcelona?
I'm flying off Friday. I'm always excited going to Spain. It's one of my favorite country in the world. There's our chairman. There's our leaders here.
Well said. I just joined when you were saying Spain is your favorite.
Spain is my favorite country in the world.
She planned it this way.
So nice. Okay, now I think I can go now. Bye.
So Iago, why don't you introduce yourself, your personal background and mission to the team and to the viewers?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, okay. So my name is Iago. Santiago Tenorio is the full name. I serve TIP supporting the board. So I support Caroline, I support Juan Carlos on everything they need from me, which is not a lot because they're so good. Apart from that, I support the network architecture team at Vodafone as well. So that's me.
If you couldn't tell, he's Spanish.
Yeah, but I think he could probably. Yeah.
So Iago,
That's
this
kind
is
of,
like
when
Mobile World
you
Congress is like an annual mecca for you. How long have you been involved in the event? And right from the beginning, going back
Oh my
to
God.
Cannes and Nice?
No. In fact, I think I never made it to Cannes or Nice. I missed that, but I don't think I missed any year while it moved to Barcelona after that. I think so. Yeah, been going to Mobile World Congress a lot, and it's like, I think it's like it's like a marathon. It's like running a marathon. You have to train for it. Actually, you need to pace yourself. You need to even watch what you eat the week before, because you may not eat at all during that week,
Yeah.
or you may actually sometimes you do the opposite, because you have to have dinner twice, maybe
Three times.
yeah, you have breakfast twice, no lunch, then 3 dinners. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get.
Speaking of, you never know who's going to arrive. We have yet another guest, Kevin Holly. Wow, Eugenia, TIP really has a big network. How many people are we going to get? Maybe 10, 20 people on this call? So, Kevin, if you would introduce yourself and your background and your mission as part of the TIP organization.
Hi, yeah, sorry for the slight delay there. Slight technical issue as usual. Yes, I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Kevin Holly. I work for BT British Telecom, and we've been long-time members of TIP, and we're very pleased to be part of a number of activities with TIP. We have, I'm based at Adastral Park, which is our main research facility, and we have a number of trials going on here. We have like a real road situation outside, and we have antennas out there, so we're trialing all kinds of new radio stuff there, yeah, we're really looking forward to what's coming out of MWC, so I'm very pleased to be with you today.
So Kevin, TIP is, as a big community of members. Of course, BT is a very storied company. You participate in so many industry forums and standards bodies and associations and groups. I'm guessing probably there isn't a group in our space that you're not a part of. But Kevin, why is TIP different from your perspective? What's unique about it?
Well, I guess, personally, I'm familiar with kind of the older standards bodies, the traditional ITU, ETSI, where it was almost started by the incumbent telecoms operators. And yeah, you've got standard telecoms operators and standards telecom vendors. But in today's world, where we're moving into a more software-driven situation, it's not sufficient just to be talking to the folks who have been around the table for years and years. We need to bring on the IT companies who've not traditionally played in the telco standardization space. And I think TIP has a great role there, because TIP is really brought alongside the telcos and the telco vendors. We've brought alongside the IT industry too, and they have a very important role to play, especially when we're trying to move to a softwarization situation where we're breaking apart some of the barriers that traditionally existed in traditional telco networks.
Evan, I take the chance now that Kevin and Iago got in to leave you. Okay, I need to come back and do.
You have to do some real work. I'm thinking. Not just
Barcelona, yeah.
Okay.
Work on those slides.
Yeah. I leave you with good people. Okay, and they will do perfect. See you. Thank you very much.
See you in Barcelona.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
So Iago, I'm gonna steal the stage for you. So Vodafone made some groundbreaking announcement, and I saw you with pictures of a tiny little device that is open and disaggregated. So can you tell us a little bit more about what was you holding in that picture.
Yes, for sure. I have to say that announcement has actually gone well beyond my expectations. Maybe my expectations were wrong, but it's probably one of my most successful posts in LinkedIn, at least for this year. And we're getting interest literally from everybody. Throughout the weekend, I got like 10 or 15 companies reaching out, wanting to collaborate, and that is fantastic. And I think that talks a lot about openness and about the power of Open Run, about how Open Run kind of drives an entire and taps on an entire ecosystem, not just one or two vendors, and everybody can play and everybody has a role, and that is super exciting because it's Open Run in action. Now, what was it? It was a small 5G network running on a Raspberry Pi. So we've been cooperating with Raspberry themselves and with a company that builds a software-defined radio. They happen to be the chairman of the board as well. It's Line Microsystem, is a small startup in the UK that does silicon, and they do an SDR piece of silicon that is really cool, and they embedded that onto a board that is super powerful. It's an Open Run radio that can scale up to anything you want it to be. It's a 2x2, but you can form a 4x4 or anything else just by stacking boards like that. And then you use any computing platform to run software. That is, this board is turning into a 5G signal, or a 4G signal, or a 3G, or a 2G, or Wi-Fi, or an FM radio, or a GPS, or whatever you want, because that's the power of software-defined radio, right? So we decided to stack it with a Raspberry Pi because it's cool, because it talks about the power of the combined system. It talks about the power of Open Run. It talks about the power of software-defined radio. Because if you can actually turn a Raspberry into a 5G network, including the core with all its elements, then, what can you turn into a 5G network? Everything. So your laptop would be more powerful. An x86 server with Intel inside would be much more powerful, or even an AWS server or a Microsoft server, or it doesn't really matter. It's completely agnostic to the platform. It's just you have something that can compute and can run radio software and a core network, then we can turn it into a base station and into an entire 5G network. So I think this talks a lot about where Open Run is going. And so imagine modular radios that you can plug onto virtually anything, and you can turn that into a new coverage system. And you can use it for public network or for private network. You can use it for extending coverage or capacity. You can use it for whatever you want. But I think what we're looking for, and I think one of the reasons why it got traction, is it democratizes the network. It makes it affordable for everybody. It puts the control back with the customer, and it gives way to many more vendors, suppliers, and partners to come and develop systems here. So I think that's what makes it cool. Now, on the way to Mobile World Congress, I have to tell you one thing. I think we're going to be announcing at least one or two things every day. So watch this space, because that's Monday news. But today we published something actually very cool with some of our fellow operators as well. Did you see that?
Well,
Yes,
tell us more.
I was going to ask this question because it's, as we were saying, it's so unusual to see global mobile operators on the same stage collaborating. It happens in TIP, and I saw the announcement this morning. It's a continuous effort from MOU that was done in 2021. So the question is, Iago, if you want to describe what was this announcement about, and then I'm going to ask Caroline and Kevin, what do you think it means for Open RAN?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so very briefly. So the operators who signed the memorandum of understanding for Open RAN, which is an entirely open group, so it's not closed to anybody. Everybody's invited as long as you're supporting Open RAN. This was the basis of the specification that was submitted for TIP to publish. So our kind of releases are based in TIP on the same specification that this group of operators are working on, which I think is fantastic because it talks consistency and it talks, coherence on the ecosystem and in the industry. So we just published today a white paper with our views as to where Open RAN is currently as a technology. And this is very important because, it's just our view, but as operators, we don't have an agenda. We're not biased either in favor or against. We use single RAN as much as we want to use Open RAN. We don't have opinions. We just build a white paper with our observations as to where we think technology is at this point in time, particularly when it comes to security, maturity, and energy efficiency, which are the most talked about topics when you talk about Open RAN these days. But most often, you hear opinions from companies or people interested that they have a authoritarian agenda and they have a authoritarian bias, either in favor or against or somewhere in the supply chain. So we are the final say users of the technology, and of course for us, and Kevin, I'm sure will agree with me, the most important thing is the customer experience. So we would not sacrifice that for anything. We want efficient networks that don't consume a lot of energy and offer the same performance to our customers. And we write that paper from that perspective. Now, as you say, when a group of operators that are competitors get together and agree on something, that's usually carrying some value. Just because we agree on something, I think it's worth listening to it. And that is what the release today talks about. It's a white paper that details everything, and I recommend everybody interested in Open RAN to read it.
Wow.
Thank you. Once we post that video, we'll post the link to the white paper. We couldn't plan it better, our LinkedIn Live. So Caroline, what do you think the future of Open RAN is? Is 2023 going to be the year of Open RAN? Momentum is great, deployments are catching up. So, and TIP's role, obviously, in Open RAN. What do you think?
I mean, if we look at how long we've been working on Open RAN, and Iago, remember you were on stage, I think it was Amsterdam, when you shared the results of the joint RFI on Open RAN. Remember that? That's the first time when an operator on stage and shared the RFI results and ranking different equipment providers. And that was the first. And that really highlight what TIP's value is. And now you see multiple things like what Iago just talked about, having a democratizing this 5G private wireless AP that anybody can go and deploy this. And in fact, I was one of the person that were talking with Iago over the weekend, how can we work on this together? This because it points to a new trend that that 5G is not just for smartphone. 5G is for any enterprises, small, medium, large, that wanted to leverage the power of connectivity to drive a Mac or the edge server, which is a much bigger, for Intel at least, it's a much bigger market to drive the cloud much closer to the edge. I think that's one side. Really excited about what Open RAN, what open disaggregated and software innovation can do for private networks. And then also the connectivity that Evan, we talked about, how do we enable the underserved and not unserved community to leverage the lower cost, lower energy, what Open RAN bring to the table. I think we haven't even talked about Fuse. I mean, MWC is a big show for TIP, but our real show is what's coming up end of the year in Madrid. And that's when we really announcing, you can meet all of our vendors and partners, and TIP Academy will be there. I think that really show the power of what TIP can bring. Like last year we announced GCC 7, and a group of operators in the Middle East got together and become a much bigger buying power and dictating what their needs for their region is. I think we're going to continue to do more of that.
And thank you, Caroline. Like, you prompted me to share the coupon for TIP Academy. So yes, Fuse, hold the dates, everyone, October 9, 10, 11 in Madrid. We're all excited. We're going to
my favorite city in the world, Madrid.
Kevin, which is your favorite city, or which is your favorite technology for TIP? You can answer either.
Yeah, I think, all of them. I think one of the things about this open, disaggregated new system is that people can run at different speeds, and it's democracy, and it's the important thing, I think, is the innovation. So whenever we get some discussion like this, I mean, this paper that's come out, unfortunately I haven't been able to read it yet, but I gather from what Yago said, it's a really positive step for the industry. And I think it will drive discussion, and then the discussion will eke out what are the new points in this, where are the value points, what are some of the issues that we're going to have to get over in time. One of the issues, for example, is going to be around some of the handsets, because I know that handset vendors control which networks they can go on. So if you want to pull up a private network, sometimes it's very difficult to get a handset that will work on your private network because it hasn't been checked by the handset vendor. So that's one of the hoops we're going to have to go through. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Fuse and what we can do with that. BT's been really engaged in some of the non-open RAN side of TIP. So, for example, the open BNG, so democratizing more of the fixed network side, and also the open OLT. I don't know if you know, but I think it was last week we had a peak, a record peak of roughly 30 terabits per second on our network. And that was because people were streaming. There were 3 simultaneous football matches that were going on that were being streamed by people. And then we also had Call of Duty that everybody was trying to download at the same time. And so, managing all that traffic through our core network, fixed and mobile, because, it's not just people watching big TVs for football these days. People want to watch it on the small screen too. I guess you'd call it soccer in the US. But yeah, all of that is very important. And the more we can focus on making sure our network is open, disaggregated, and the energy efficiency point is there, the more we can serve our customers and make sure we don't get somebody who gets blips in their TV service, or they can't download their favorite game at the time they want to download it. So all of that's very important. The other thing that's becoming more and more significant is the supply chain diversity, and I think the way that TIP is delivering openness is going to enable us to drive more supply chain diversity. And there was another point I was going to make that I've forgotten about. Yeah, the NTIA submission that we've done is really, really important, and that, I think, that highlights one of the reticences of a lot of operators around Open RAN, which is around the system integration. So it's some operators, particularly the smaller scale operators, are looking at this and saying, well, I can't really do all this system integration by myself. How do I get some help to do that? And obviously, one way to do that is to go to a big vendor and say, can you do that for me? Another way is to do it yourself. But what TIP is now trying to do is to make a blueprint so that a lot of other companies can come along and say, yes, we conform to the TIP blueprint, and we can offer a guaranteed, properly integrated system. And I think that will really help to drive the interest in open networks, which will then drive the innovation. And I think at the end, what we really want is to give people access to this technology that will drive innovation and new thinking Because while you have few people with their brains focused on it, you don't get the level of innovation that you otherwise would get. And you only need to look at the app ecosystem for mobile phones to see what innovation can do to something which is basically a blank slate, or would be a blank slate without all that innovation that's been driven through the APIs that have been developed and delivered on mobile devices.
So interesting. I mean, this is like where the computer industry was in the early 80s, right, Caroline, as far as, open platforms, and we saw the emergence of startups, little companies like Microsoft that got into the space, and, a whole industry was created. Are we at the beginning of that now, Eugenia, with the opening up of platforms like 5G and like mobile infrastructure?
I think we're not in the middle. I think we're, what Kevin was saying, and Iago and Caroline and Juan Carlos before we left, we're actually making some really important strides toward opening up not just Open RAN, but also transport in the core, and bringing more intelligence and automation in the network. So Kevin and Iago, before you joined us, we asked Caroline and Juan Carlos one question, and I'm going to put you on the spot, and it's a very important question. Our viewers really want to know. And you guys are laughing because you know. So what is your most favorite, most memorable MWC story? It could be funny, like 3 dinners or 5 dinners on the same night, or it could be driving like a crazy man not to miss a meeting.
Or embarrassing. So, we like embarrassing, to be honest.
Heel. If you wear high heels, one of you. Broke a heel in the middle of a presentation.
I got interviewed by the local TV at the entrance once because there was a big strike. So everything went on strike. I think it was a number of years ago. I think it was before the pandemic. It must have been maybe 2019 or 2018. And all the services went on strike during the Mobile World Congress week to put pressure on the city council and whatever. So taxis on strike, the underground's on strike, and people had a really difficult time to get to the Congress. But as I was saying before, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Mobile World Congress is just complete madness, all week and the week before. So this week as well, and the weekend. So it's like Saturday and Sunday. And so you don't have time for anything. I think they're the 2 busiest weeks in the year. So I made it Monday morning ready to register. And then the local TV interviewed me. Also, I guess, because they thought I was Spanish and I would speak Spanish, which I would. And they asked me, what do I think about the strike? I said, what strike?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's like, so how did you, so where are you coming from today? And say, well, from, Barcelona city center. And say, how did you come? I said, by taxi. And why did you come by taxi? Because I didn't know they were on strike.
I love it. Trolling the television presenters. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it wasn't my intention. I think, that wasn't the interview they wanted.
What about you, Kevin? Come on, you have something, I'm sure.
I have a probably quite boring, quite common story. I had my suitcase stolen last year.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
So this was on the train going from the airport to my hotel when I arrived. And so I went to the police and dealt with all that. But then this was on the Sunday. So on the Sunday, I had the clothes that I was wearing. And that was it. So I had to find somewhere in Barcelona that was open, that would sell me some clothes so that I could go dress properly to MWC the next day. So it was a bit tricky, but I made it, and I got there, and it was. So
that's a great use case for AirTags, if I've ever heard one. Put an AirTag in your suitcase and your bag, and you maybe get it back if it's taken.
You don't know how many AirTags I bought in the last year.
One per shoe. Well, Eugenia, we're at the bottom of the hour. It's been a really fun and interesting conversation, eye-opening for me in particular. I think I'm going to start my own 5G operator running on a Raspberry Pi. I don't know, Evan phone, we're going to call it. But really interesting, insightful conversation. Any final thoughts, Eugenia, before the big week next week?
Thank you very much. I want to thank Iago, Caroline, Kevin, and Juan Carlos for finding time in their busy day right before MWC to come and talk about TIP, TIP Pavilion, TIP Academy, Fuse. So we'll see you all in Barcelona.
See you
All
there.
right, everyone.
Yeah, safe
Thank you.
travels, everyone.
Yeah, safe travels.
Thanks so much.
Care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.